Hello. Today we're having a wine that's a little bit off the beaten path. It's a Rasteau from the south of France, of some of the Côte-du-Rhône region on the left bank of the Rhône, off the left bank, so in the east, by Jerome Bressy. The domain is Gourt de Mautens, and it's a Rasteau because it's a 2001, and we'll talk a little bit about this. Rasteau is an area that I didn't know anything about. It's a very small area in the Côte-du-Rhône area, sort of a sub area. And I think Hani turned me on to this, and I found this from basically the best known producer in the region, Jerome Bressy, who took over from his father, just at the turn of the century, and was determined to make this whole thing organic and then biodynamic about 15 years ago. Rasteau is now in appellation since 2009, 10, 11, because they lobbied for that to have their own appellation. Before that, they used to be just a Côte-du-Rhône village. They were able to put the village name and Côte-du-Rhône village Rasteau, which is the name of the village, on their bottles. But since they lobbied to have their own appellation, now there's an appellation that's called Rasteau. But as a result, Bressy, who's the most famous producer of Rasteau, dropped out of the appellation because he refused to drop some of the wines he uses, some of the grapes he uses is in his mix, because with the new appellation came a new regulation of what you can use, which was more specifically what goes in the Côte-du-Rhône, listing. Anyway, so now it's in IGP, so IGP, géographique protégé, geographic appellation, if you want, but not really an appellation. So like some sort of an area-specific label. So if you find a Jérôme Bressy from after 2011, it will be called an IGP. It will not be called the Rasteau. It's the same wine, same guy, same process. Right now, they're all biodynamic, wild yeasts, pretty much mostly destemmed at the time. For whole cluster at the time, this was more destemmed, so that style has evolved. All sorts of different, primarily Grenache still, with some Syrah, Counoise, Mourvèdre, and I think a little bit of white varieties that I'm not really familiar with. It's aged for a very long time separately in big tanks, like either 600 or 1500 liters, and then it's assembled after about 20 months, and again led to raised in concrete for about 12, 16, 18 months. So net, this is a wine that is raised for 36 months before it's released in the market and bottled and released in the market. So it just takes its time. And this producer is actually, the wines are not cheap. They're not what you call like Côte-du-Rhône cheap. So you're closer in Châteauneuf-du-Pape in prices. But they tend to be very well worked, low yield, just really have their own specifics, because also the area of Rasteau is sort of the southern facing terraces that get the heat, from the Mediterranean. It's pretty far south, kind of not far from Avignon, but at the same time, since they're facing south, they're protected from the Mistral that comes down from the north, and so they are a little bit more even keeled. And they have the Mistral, but on the other hand, the Mistral allows the growing season to be a little bit longer. These grapes do not overheat. So this harvest is picked really in October. Not in September. And so the wines have their own a little bit mature taste and flavor to them, even the reds. Also, this is an area that makes fortified wines and late harvest wines. So it lends itself to that. Anyway, this is the sort of the background. Let's see what we have here. The color, this is a 2001. I bought it not too long ago. The color is really dark. It's brown. It's thick. It's sort of it's got this depth to it that tells you a little bit about the wine when you're thinking about it. When I first opened the bottle, I told Hani right away, I just got this sort of notion of pork loin with prunes, that sort of fat and dark sweet fruit, mixed in together. And that sensation has stayed with me since. It is a deep wine. So what does that mean? It means it's got depth of fruit and earth at the same time, and that's probably because of the evolution. It's 14% alcohol, so not too much, but at the time there was a high alcohol wine, and the flavors kind of swirl between sweet and fat. So it's I don't know how well the bottle was preserved. I have to tell you that, because the cork gave me some trouble, but the wine's it didn't go bad. It's just got a different aging profile. In the mouth, what you get is really the prunes, a little bit of acidity, so it's good with kind of mushrooms and truffles, because it's got that earth tone in it as well. Not a lot of tannins left, so just a little bit, but that's not something that really comes to mind first. It's just sort of like this. It is a little bit leaning towards more of like some of the port flavors, with a really dark, deep fruit, not cooked, but almost warm and sort of, that's got that thickness to it. But at the same time, it's a winter wine. I mean, to me, that's not something I want to put in the fridge. It's not something that you're just gonna enjoy on its own, maybe on an afternoon. It is really a food wine. It's just interesting because it's different. It's a small producer. It's just worth the detour, and it's just another side of what goes on in some of these areas that we think we know in pretty big buckets, like you got Côte d'Or and Châteauneuf and whatever. But this is again a sub of a sub that's got its own climate characteristics. The soil is kind of poor, not very organic. It just got its own producers, its own type of wine, even though it's using varietals that are common all over the area. Anyway, very interesting bottle, sorry, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.